Right friends, welcome back to Editorial Discussion. Today we are going to deliberate on 3-4 important aspects. One is with regard to appointments as spoils of office. What is the meaning of a spoils system? Spoils system means when a politically affiliated person is appointed to the top post. If AIADMK supporter is appointed to Tamil Nadu Public Service Commission, at the same time, if BJP supporter is appointed to Union Public Service Commission, that system is known as the spoils system. Very important. Please understand this main concept of spoils system. And after understanding this, the issue is with regard to Madras High Court judgment, which quashed appointment of 11 members to Tamil Nadu Public Service Commission, and Supreme Court stood by that judgment. Right. So, this is all about this editorial, and here Madras High Court quashed the appointment of 11 members of Tamil Nadu Public Service Commission. For Tamil Nadu Public Service Commission, for 3 years no members were appointed. That means after waiting for 3 years, applications were called, and within single day it was decided for appointments. So, the High Court stated that there is no procedure at all. That is why we are not able to comment on whether the persons are able or efficient or not. No procedure was followed while appointing 11 members. So, that was the judgment of Madras High Court. Now, Supreme Court stood by that judgment, and here constitutional bodies, statutory bodies as well as executive bodies, I would like to recollect this. And now UPSC is constitutional body. Similarly, state public service commissions, they are constitutional bodies, and we discussed last week about the various constitutional bodies, various statutory bodies, at the same time executive bodies. So, a critical question sometimes GST Council is constitutional body, this is one important aspect, and Niti Ayog is executive body, and National Commission for Scheduled Caste and Scheduled Tribes, these two are constitutional bodies, whereas National Commission for Women, National Commission for Backward Classes, these two are statutory bodies. This difference sometimes you may confuse, and if you look at various constitutional provisions as far as the UPSC, State Public Service Commission or joint commissions are concerned, Article 315 states about there shall be Public Service Commission for the Union, that means which is known as UPSC at the same time, and a Public Service Commission for each state. There is also a provision if 2 or more states agree, very important point, if 2 or more states agree, that means it is to be passed by the state legislatures. At the same time, if the state has got council, that also should pass this. So, if 2 or more states agree by passing in their legislatures, both assembly as well as council, if it exists, then there is provision for joint commission. This is one important aspect. So, joint commission can be established for 2 or more states, specifically when state legislatures agree, and here appointments to UPSC as well as joint commission are made by the president, whereas appointments to state public service commissions are made by the governor, right. And Article 316 says about the chairman and other members of UPSC joint commission are appointed by the president. For joint commission also appointed by the president, but in case of a state commission it is appointed by the governor. And at the same time, one important constitutional stipulation, please do not forget, at least half of the members have held office with either government of India or state government for at least 10 years. Half of the members at least should be having experience in government service for at least 10 years. Basically, this was kept in the constitution so as to preempt the political affiliated people. Then second thing is 6 years, the time period of office is 6 years. If it is UPSC, it is 65 years, then it is 62 years state or joint commission. So, these are as per constitutional provisions. So, you should have clear idea about constitutional provisions. And article 317, please read this article, because what is the procedure for removal and suspension of a member of UPSC, state commission or joint commission, and what are the powers of president or governors to determine service conditions. This is article 318. And one important aspect I would like to tell you, based on 318 article, central government brought UPSC members regulations 1969. So, the service conditions are governed by UPSC members regulations 1969, and amendment is there. So many amendments are there, and latest, if I am not wrong, belongs to 2007. As per 2007 amendment, it decided pay and perks. UPSC chairman will have the pay equal to chief election commissioner. UPSC member will have pay equal to election commissioner. Please verify. As far as I recollect, this is as per 2007 amendment. So, this is article 318, and article 319 prohibits holding of offices after their retirement. Then there is functions of various commissions to conduct examinations, powers to extend the functions of this public service commissions. Then another important aspect is the expenses are chargeable to consolidated fund of India if it is union, right. Similarly, consolidated fund of states if it is a state government. Then another important aspect is annual reports are to be published to, are to be presented to president as well as to the governors, and if any of the recommendations are not accepted by the government, then it is to present a reasoned report to the parliament. So, this is all about constitutional provisions. And quite often we hear about various political appointments, and in this case Madras High Court commented, appointments are against institutional integrity, that is one point. Second point is they are based on political patronage. That is why the article name is spoils system. When political patronage is there for high level appointments, the system is known as a spoils system. Then policy is deeply flawed, it is not fair, and arbitrariness is evident, right. So, selection of the members should be fair so as to ensure transparency in recruitments. So, this is the verdict of Madras High Court, and Supreme Court ratified it in fact, right. So, here the question is, do you think appointments to constitutional bodies are devoid of political affiliations? And we have to look at other constitutional bodies also, and what are the constitutional provisions, what are various guidelines issued by central government from time to time, and whether they are followed in true letter and spirit or not, and how the institutions are being used with the political patronage by the rulers. So, these are the aspects we have to discuss when you want to answer this question. And this editorial only answers partially, and I discussed various constitutional provisions because UPSC, this establishment of UPSC as well as public service commissions quite often comes into picture in examinations. Then if you look at the second one, I will spend only 1 or 2 minutes on this. This is a great American election hack, and here the email accounts of Democratic Party candidate as well as other functionaries, Democratic Party candidate as well as other functionaries were hacked by Russia, and subsequently they were released selectively. And in turn it resulted in the victory of Donald Trump. So, that is the essence of the article. That means editorial not agree to that, but United States of America, the present administration strongly feels, administration led by Barack Obama strongly feels that Russia has done to hacking of emails of Democratic Party as well as functionaries, and that ultimately resulted in the victory of Donald Trump. and this report is given by this FBI, this Federal Bureau of Investigation. Federal Bureau of Investigation is just like the CBI in our country, and this Central Intelligence Agency is external intelligence wing of United States of America, and ISI of Pakistan, all of you are familiar with. Similarly, this Central Intelligence Agency of America is the external intelligence wing of United States of America. So, this is all about this, and in the editorial the newspaper commented that there are other reasons for the victory of Donald Trump, predominantly in the Rust Belt states and other interior areas. People want to change the present establishment, that is why they voted for Donald Trump, and this hacking aspect has little to do with the victory of Donald Trump. And parallelly, if you see that America has also resorted to certain dubious means in elections in some Latin American countries in the history, right. So, this is all about this, I am not going in much detail about it. Then the third important aspect is taking a cold start out of the freezer. This is one important aspect I would like to discuss. Cold start, what is the meaning of cold start? And then in Times of India, there is one article, close the chinks. There are several gaps in border security. Frequently, extremists, or you can say terrorists from the foreign land, are resorting to attacks on our soldiers from across the border, and here there are so many gaps in border security. So, that is pointed out in the editorial of Times of India, and in the Hindu article people talked about this cold start. This cold start word came to the forefront because the new army chief recently stated the existence of a cold start when we look at Indian army. So, if you look at Indian defense forces as a whole, he admitted the existence of cold start. I am going to discuss what is the exact meaning of cold start. And here, when you look at India Pakistan, or as a whole India's security, why I have taken India Pakistan here is because of the reason there are lot many tensions with Pakistan only as on date, and in the Pakistani context only we are discussing all these aspects. That is why I mentioned the one is the surgical strikes. All of you are familiar with 2016. Probably two words which dominated India in 2016 are surgical strikes and demonetization. So, surgical strikes, all of you are familiar with, that means going and hitting on Pakistani land and coming back. So, that is a surgical strike. Then no first use policy. Our doctrine is no first use policy. As far as nuclear arsenal are concerned, our principled stand is we never use for the first time. If somebody attacks us, if someone attacks us, then we will destroy that country. For that only we are building up nuclear arsenal. But at the first instance, we never undertake the nuclear for the first time. That means no first use policy. That is our well laid out doctrine. But recently, Defense Minister stated that there is a need for reviewing this no first use doctrine, and it led to a lot of controversy and debate across the country. But overall, as on date, our doctrine is no first use. If someone attacks us, then only we will retaliate with nuclear arsenal, otherwise we never interfere, we will never use for the first time. Then limited war. Limited war, of course, this is not a doctrine, but limited war concept is just one example I will tell you. Kargil war is example of limited war. And cold start. Now, for the past 10 years, in the defense circles, there was a talk with regard to the existence of cold start. With regard to the existence of cold start, there was a talk in the defense circles. Now, the new army chief in a newspaper interview, in a magazine interview recently stated that, and stated clearly that there is an existence of cold start. And we are going to deliberate what is meant by cold start. And here India Pakistan, if you look at it, we discussed during that surgical strikes juncture when Indian Pakistan tensions heightened. Diplomatic options means we can recall high commissioners, at the same time we can look at the reduction in other exchanges, maybe people to people exchanges, cultural exchanges, we can reduce the staff of their high commission. So, these are various diplomatic options. If you look at the military options, then various doctrines are surgical strikes, which India conducted during 2016 on Pakistani land. As I have already told you, no first use policy, that is another important doctrine. Limited war, this is not a doctrine, but Kargil war can come under this concept. And cold start, now we are going to discuss on cold start. Then economic options, we discussed about previously during 2016, we deliberated on securing trade ties. That means you cannot call securing, basically severing trade ties. This should be severing trade ties should be severed. Next one is withdrawing MFN status, then terminating Indus Water Treaty. So, these things as economic options we deliberated, and here most favoured nation status we deliberated 40th week, that is capsule 3. If you want more, you can view this. Then Uri, what next? 2 parts we deliberated during 38th week last year, and you can view this because we deliberated in detail on Indus Water Treaty in these capsules. And let us come back to the discussion of cold start. Today's article is based on cold start. Here all of you are familiar with the border of India and Pakistan. Then at the same time, all of you are familiar with the line of control, right? So, this line of control, several times what is being happened, terrorists are coming from across the line of control, and hitting our security establishments, and several common people are also being killed. And this cold start is basically you establish a division like formation in the nearby areas, because our bad experiences, whenever we want to mobilize forces, then it is taking weeks. So, this cold start concept in army is creating division sized formation that could rapidly mobilize and carry out at short notice. It should be in a position to hit Pakistan by taking certain territory of Pakistani land. That means here very important, quickly seize and hold Pakistani territory, That means establishment of division sized formation quite close to line of control, maybe 1 division or 2 divisions, it is up to the government, and whenever need arises, then we can seize quickly the Pakistani territory and we can hit. That means the time in mobilizing will not be much. So, this is basically cold start. So, it is an attempt to develop a usable, conventional, retaliatory option. Basically, it intends to punish Pakistan, very important point. It intends to punish Pakistan without triggering wider conventional or nuclear escalation. In a nutshell, whenever some terrorist attack takes place on our security establishment near the border, if some attack takes place, then immediately India can seize a part of Pakistani territory and decimate the terrorist establishment there and immediately come back. So, this is the meaning of cold start, right. So, based on this Army General's statement, Army Chief statement, now the article talks about cold start. And article questions, because for the past 10-15 years, there is a lot of discussion among the think tanks in army that there is existence of cold start, and because of the existence of cold start, then the author feels that 2-3 disadvantages. The authors stated that cold start if at all in existence, it is not advisable from Indian perspective. The author says, because of this unofficial debate or official statement by the army chief, it may lead to build up of conventional or nuclear weapons by Pakistan. So, it may lead to build up of conventional or nuclear weapons by Pakistan. The second point which the authors stated, army lacks the material and organization to implement aggressive versions of cold start. For implementation of aggressive versions of cold start, the meaning of cold start is we should not allow it to proliferate into a war. It is only short time. The meaning, if you see, the meaning is quickly seizing and holding Pakistani territory and decimating terrorists. That is the meaning of cold start. And if at all cold start theory holds good, there are several difficulties as per the author. One is Pakistan may build up conventional or nuclear weapons. That is one disadvantage. The second problem is army lacks the material and organization to implement aggressive versions of cold start. Then the third point is it requires a lot of coordination with Indian Air Force. Army itself cannot do the operation, and it requires inter-coordination between army as well as Indian Air Force. 2 points are put forth by the authors. The first point is Indian Air Force lacks necessary air support for such operations. And the second one is inter-coordination between army and Air Force is also not up to the mark. So, because of all these reasons, the authors state that the concept of cold start, if at all it exists between India and Pakistan, is detrimental to the interests of India. They will serve the proliferation of conventional as well as nuclear arsenal by Pakistan, and it will not serve the interests of India. It will neither serve the interests of India and nor they are feasible, because we do not have that much infrastructure for cold start. So, if you understand this cold start, these points will be very clear to you, because it is mobilizing in very short notice, then occupying certain parts of Pakistani land and decimating terrorists and coming back. That is the meaning of cold start, right. So, here let us conclude this. There is one article in Times of India. Times of India article says that there are 50 gaps in border security. There are several gaps in security. Some of them are body armor, it is not up to the mark. Then night vision gear. Then flawed fuel storage. Our fuel storage is adjacent, and that is why around 10 to 15 soldiers were burnt alive in the recent terrorist attack. So, proper fuel storage mechanism is to be ensured. Then perimeter security. Perimeter security is very important. Our army base may extend into around 1000 or 2000 acres, and throughout the perimeter our security is not up to the mark. Then detection system of terrorists is not up to the mark. Then standard operating procedures are not available in case of terrorist attack. So, these are the major drawbacks in our security as far as border security or as far as the security with, especially with Pakistan is concerned. And after the Kargil war also, committee stated that there were several gaps in the security, and these are to be addressed immediately, right. So, this is all about this Times of India editorial. Let us come back to the Hindu. Here, mind the gender gap. Especially the issues pertaining to gender gap, they comes to the forefront quite often. From examination perspective also, they are very important. As per the report, as per the authors, 194 members including India adopted United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. United Nations Sustainable Development Goals for 15-year period, all of you are familiar with 17 Sustainable Development Goals for 15-year period. Please look into this. These are 17 Sustainable Development Goals, and all the signatories have to ensure these sustainable development goals by 2030. That is, this is 15-year action plan, and if you look at item number 5 of sustainable development goals, it talks about gender equality. The first and the foremost is no poverty, second one is zero hunger, good health and well-being, quality education, then the fifth one is gender equality. So, these are sustainable development goals, and the author stated that gender equality is one of the 17 goals to transform the world, and India also ratified Paris Agreement in 2016 as far as climate change is concerned, and there is a link, there is a established link between empowerment of women. If women are empowered, then poverty will be reduced, and automatically it will have effect on combating the climate change also. All of you are familiar with the chullas in several houses. You see conventional cooking, LPG is still not being used. It is causing lot of indoor pollution. So, in climate change issues as well as alleviating poverty, at the same time increasing the enrollment ratio in schools and reducing malnutrition, all these are dependent on women empowerment. At the same time, if women are empowered, then child sex ratio will also improve. It is unfavorable for girl child, and it will also improve if women are empowered, right? And here, as per the report, annual gender gap report of World Economic Forum ranks India at 87, and it is not a satisfactory phenomena, and it ranks based on economy, education, health and political representation, and challenges are also given. These challenges are declining labor participation and declining participation. Then second one is underrepresentation in parliament. If you look at our parliament or state assemblies, the women representation is hovering around 8% or 10%. Then skewed child sex ratio. In several states like Haryana, the child sex ratio is not up to the mark, and one positive aspect is nowadays child sex ratio in Haryana is improving. And gender based violence, we are seeing several incidents taking place. Molestation of women, gender based violence, Bangalore incident, Nirbhaya, all these things are basically gender based violence. And here gender responsive budgeting, the article talks about gender responsive budgeting because it completed more than 11-12 years. This gender responsive budgeting was adopted in the year 2005. There were some annexures in that, and as per part A, part B both are there. As per part A, women specific schemes with 100% allocation for women are mentioned. Women specific schemes with 100% allocation for women are mentioned. At the same time, pro women schemes with at least 30% allocation for women are also mentioned under part B. So, it consists of part A, part B, and 16 states also implemented this gender responsive budgeting. 16 states are also implemented this gender responsive budgeting, and the states whichever have implemented this gender responsive budgeting recorded better girls enrollment ratio in schools, right. So, there are several positive aspects of this gender responsive budgeting, but there are several problems faced during the past 10 years. The article talks about various problems faced during the past 10 years. One is Ministry of Women and Child Development budget is not increasing, only nominal increase is there. And the second one is National Commission for Women, there is nominal increase in the budget. Then Domestic Violence Act, no allocation for this. So, there are several gaps in this gender responsive budgeting, and the article tried to point out these aspects. Then the third one is decline in the number of ministries and departments under gender responsive budgeting day by day. The states, day by day the departments which are included under gender responsive budgeting are coming down, and decentralization of funding nowadays because of the Finance Commission report, 42% of the allocation of the shareable resources is going to states, and more resources are going to states, and now it all depends on the states whether they will do justice or not. So, as more decentralization is taking place, some states may not do justice, that is the point. So, the article suggests right allocations, monitoring and evaluation mechanisms are the key for women development or empowerment. Right allocations, monitoring and evaluation mechanisms are the key for women's empowerment. And please go through this article, it has got some vital points, most of them I have taken here, and if you combine with some more articles in the future, you can answer this type of question. A decade of gender responsive budgeting resulted in bridging the gender gap, critically examine. Almost 12 years, this gender responsive budgeting was implemented in 2005 and it resulted in bridging the gender gap, whether you agree with it or not, critically examine. This type of questions you can expect. Right friends, today we discussed some articles of the Hindu and one article of Times of India, and in the Hindu one article pertains to Bangalore incident, and I will cover separately in news capsule, because we have to look at various acts pertaining to women's safety in our country, and one more article on the Kenyan president visit to India, and we will deliberate after his visit concludes. And with this, today we are concluding this newspaper editorials discussion, and at 12 noon we will have comprehension ability, improving comprehension or vocabulary. Please do join. Have a nice day. Thank you. Thanks a lot.